Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to, if you guys are not familiar, this is Joshua Moon, also known as Null, the proprietor of Kiwi Farms, among many other entities. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
So, and I didn't, I meant it truly. You have a lot of experience of, at the legal world at this point in time in your, your storied career. I'm sure you didn't expect that when you started all this. Um,
Yeah, there's like an expression like serial litigant is how you describe someone who sues people
yes.
constantly. I'm a serial defendant, I think, is a new category of person that I fall into.
I think so. I think that's very true. You're very much a yeah. You're
There's a brand new guy
constantly.
threatening to sue me pro se. I don't even want to mention him because I think he's out for attention, but
Oh,
yeah, it came out of nowhere because I don't want to get into it, but it's like it came out of
I'll talk
nowhere.
to you about it. I'll talk to you about it later.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to. So you listened to it. What do you think so far?
Okay, for I thought that Monty's attorney, no, he didn't sound very opposing, which I know is like a superficial thing, but I
Yeah,
think that matters a lot to people.
sure.
He kind of had like a mush mouth, which I shouldn't say ever, but it was definitely, I don't know, they grilled him really hard, and the one thing that the guy on the first panelist, the guy on the left, he asked him a question that was like, why should it be in Minnesota instead of Colorado? Doesn't it sound like forum shopping? And you would
Yeah.
hope that when going to the appellate court, I think this is the appellate court, right? To do oral arguments, that you would have a
Oh,
canned response for that because that's like the question, like
yeah.
that's the question that you're answering. And he kind of like froze in response to that question, like, "Whoa, that's bad," because that should be, that should be like the question you're prepared to answer in total. And then
Yes.
Randazza gets on, and he literally just like he walks up, he hits the dab, and then everyone claps for him. That's it. There's
Well,
no.
I mean, there's something to be said about having that experience and Rondon. Okay, guys, you guys are saying that both Ethan and Ralph and Jim went on. Okay, that would be hilarious. But no, well, I don't know how I get a hold of them really at this point anyway. Um, that's funny. But no, I think for Randazza, he shows up in places. This is not abnormal for him. He shows up. He's out of town talent. He comes in and has to knock it down. So he's very comfortable in his own skin. He's obviously older than the other guy, and that doing this a million times makes you better at it. Just being there, being in that situation, and I think they were not prepared, and ultimately, I think they were a little unprepared for the court being as receptive to the forum shopping argument. I don't think they were anticipating that to be as because they're even saying like, well, do you think we got it right? Like the Supreme Court of Colorado got this right.
Yeah.
And instead of just saying, well, a lot of times they'd say, well, hey, it's our law. That's what we're bound by. But I think they think there's something to be said there about, is this a forum shopping issue? Now, whether or not they decide on that, they were very interested in talking about it. And I don't think they were ready for that as in depth as it happened.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was kind of my main gripe was just that he didn't have an answer for the why should it be in Minnesota, because I was under the assumption, and
Hmm.
I was shocked that he didn't bring this up, that you can always sue somebody in their state if they commit a crime on the internet or a tort on the internet,
Hmm.
and you can always sue them in their state. That's what because
Yeah.
for various reasons I've had pretty complicated discussions regarding jurisdiction recently, and
Hmm.
that's obviously one of your main considerations because I'm a Floridian living
Hmm.
place unknown. I have businesses in Wyoming and every other state in the U.S., and then the defendants are in two other states that I have no conduct in. So it's like, well, where do you
Yeah.
sue? And I had been informed that you can always sue in the state where the tort originated. So why it's a question that he can't sue in Minnesota, it kind of eludes me to begin with.
Well, ultimately he can, and the one judge pointed out. He said, "I do federal court all the." He's like, "I was a federal court practitioner." He said, I could do what you're doing, but he said almost all the time we filed where the plaintiff lives, and if especially if that was where the tort occurred as well. So for Monty, he was in Colorado, and I know Monty's saying that he lives in Illinois right now, and I'm not getting into that. But wherever it is he wanted to live at or was living at is where typically you file the action. It's always easier. You take advantage of that. So, like, for example, like Russell Greer, like why he filed in Utah versus Nevada makes no sense to me because he lives in Nevada. Why not
He was
file
living
there?
in that case has been going on for so long. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that he was living in Utah when it
Oh, he was
happened.
at the time?
Yeah,
Oh,
same as how Monty I think now lives in Illinois, but he was living in Colorado at the time. Which
yeah.
to me, I mean, it's like that should have been his go-to. Why file in Minnesota? Plaintiff is transient. He lives in a different state than
Mhm.
Colorado now. So if he remanded this back to Colorado, that wouldn't make any sense because he doesn't live there
Yeah.
anymore. His
Well,
is an online presence. He does
yeah.
all this stuff online. That's his business. So it doesn't make it makes
Yeah.
more sense to sue where the defendant's going to be than where the
Yeah.
plaintiff is.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but a lot of times though you file where, and yes, that's true, but I also think the court's saying, but yes, you could. They obviously were attuned to the idea that Minnesota's state law applications are far more favorable to Monty than even Colorado, or I don't know what Illinois are, but
I'm sure
or
they have
Illinois,
anti-slap.
if you're French, if you'd like to call it that. That's something they're at least noticing. Now, whether or
Yeah.
not they,
I mean, I'm sure it was forum shopping, like to be
yeah,
real.
yeah, I mean, but like I told Monty, it's an issue of it's not wrong. It's a question of what's right or wrong. It's just a question of is this the right fit? Is this the best way to do it?
Yeah.
When getting ready for the bar, there was this multiple choice part of it, and they would have questions, and you'd look at two answers, and they're both really good, but they'd say you have to pick the more correct answer. And I always hated that shit because if they're both right, they should work. But when it comes to the conflicts of law issue, in this case, it's not an issue of one's right or wrong. One of them is a little more correct than the other, and it's an issue of is it Minnesota, is it Colorado? So
Well,
they
my
both work.
question is, if they're going to send this back to district
Hmm.
court, they're sending it back to Minnesota district court to apply Colorado anti-slap.
Yes,
That's insane. I
that
mean,
happens. So,
that should be your defense. That's insane. Why
well,
the fuck would you do that?
I mean, Josh, like you and I can enter a contract, and we could say the forum of choice is Texas, and we'll be arguing Rhode Island law. You could do that, and it's utterly insane to do that, but you can agree to have that maybe be a term. There's all kinds of ways you can agree to the choice of laws, the form of laws, the proper forum to try a case in. So that's entirely it's
Yeah.
dumb, but you can do it.
Yeah,
And
that is dumb because you're just complicating matters for absolutely everybody involved. Not a single person is spared misery in that case.
well, there's always reasons for it though. I've seen that happen once or twice and stuff I've run across. There was a reason for it, and once the reason was explained to me, made some sense, but I still thought it was dumb as hell. And in this situation, even if Nick wins here, he could still lose because the court could say, okay, well, I'm going to apply it. And nope, it's still defamation, I think, per se, has been met. Go on a discovery.
Oh, that would be the funniest outcome. I always root for the funniest outcome. The funniest outcome
Mm-hmm.
is that he spends all this money on this appeal,
Mm-hmm.
asking novel questions of law to try and
Yeah.
alley-oop some kind of weird precedent for Colorado law
Mm-hmm.
being applied in Minnesota, and then succeeds, and then it's applied, and the judge is still like, "Well, this is still defamation."
Yes. No, it can. That's the thing. Like, it's not a guarantee because even in Colorado, oh, you say well, you don't just it doesn't. People think you get to go anti-slap and you drop the mic and that's it. You can still lose even with the protections provided by an anti-slap statute.
It's just very scary because if you lose an
Yeah.
anti-slap, then you owe fees, and that's unique. That's the reason
Yes.
why Vic Mignogna owes $500,000 now. It's because he lost
Yes.
against anti-slap, which is it exists basically to scare people into not filing unless unless it's like a surefire victory, basically.
Or they've got the money they're willing to lose. So and that's also the option there. But yeah, the other big part of anti-slap is generally they're pretty robust and you can get away with a lot of things, but it's not bulletproof.
It depends on the state. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Colorado's,
Mm-hmm.
but for instance, I am familiar a little bit with Massachusetts. And Massachusetts has an anti-slap law, but it's so weak it basically doesn't exist. And the same is with Virginia. Virginia has anti-slap, but Virginia's anti-slap is so weak that it effectively does not exist.
Ah.
So there are Texas is like an outlier. Like I think even because I had Harden look into this. The Texas, because I asked him what really fucked up that case. So he looked into it for me just out of his own personal curiosity,
Hmm.
his educational purposes, and he came to the conclusion that the Texas law was actually insane, and they changed it
Hmm.
specifically because of this case. Like they made it less severe than
Oh.
was when Vic filed.
Hmm. Well, I mean, on the plus side, it served a public policy purpose. I mean,
How charitable.
I mean that's it's like the epilogue. Like, sure, you may have lost, but it changed history forever.
Oh, my work. Someone asked in chat. No, I don't pay him for random questions. Because he has an interest in intellectual curiosity and the random things I ask him. So he does not. He is merciful and does not bill me for the random bullshit I grill him with.
That's really nice of him.
It is. It
It's not
is.
a lot of attorneys won't.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a godsend having him around because he is. I wouldn't say ideologically aligned, but he is like he finds everything about my predicament fascinating and amusing. So he enjoys it. So he doesn't tend to bill me for things he doesn't have to.
Okay. Walter Malone for 199 is ask a question for you. What makes a proper lolcow?
Proper Lolcow does not learn from his mistakes. That is the core defining feature. The person will walk into a rake over and over again. Added bonus, if people try to help them and they continually throw them off and say, no, I will step on this rake. I know what I'm doing. Trust me.
Yeah. And then Wendy Carter for 15, I don't know what that is saying, Jim promises years ago if he ever ends up in court, he will be fully clad in a Nintendo Lapo suit. Perhaps the time has come.
He'll be in a bubble. He'll be like in a
Well,
hamster wheel this time.
that's what
Nobody...
I don't know if you heard me. He come rolling into court in his wheelchair with like a t-shirt gun full of hats and just start pelting the crowd with them.
The judge jumping up to grab a Medicare hat from the cannon.
Everybody would. It'd be great.
Yeah, I was making a joke about how the driveway battle will take place in the courtroom. The bailiff will have to arrest like 100 people for conduct because they just break out into a brawl.
Yes.
The entire audience is just packed with like internet weirdos.
Oh yeah, it just turns it's an IBS reunion.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it'd be so good. It'd be so good. Always with the hamsters. Yeah, yeah. Just like Richard Gere, always with the hamsters.
No, no nefarious hamsters, hamster purposes.
Yes. Yes. Well, Demon's Wrath says, no, Stalker Child, is you who's stepping on the rakes.
Did you? So I made a joke about how because I set them unclean hands, and I'm like the only thing that Montegraph really did to Rekieta prior to what he said is that he was like photoshopping him into the Sweaty Squad sausage memes. Do you remember those?
I remember those.
Did those enter into a court document?
I don't.
Sweaty.
Not yet.
They did.
Oh, I don't recall seeing that. Well, I think they may have been referenced.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they were. I don't think they were like Exhibit
filings to include.
Okay.
Yeah, Exhibit A, the Sweaty Squad. This is not defamation because, Your Honor, Exhibit A, the Sweaty. I can't even say it. It's like an alliteration. The Sweaty Sausage Squad meme. And here's a picture of my defendant photoshopped into an egghead, and he's holding up a sausage that he grilled.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, I'm going to try to avoid stepping into that arena too much. But yeah, I don't think there was just there were references to it in the filings. I don't think it was an actual filing with it.
Well, I mean, what surprises me is that a lot of people in chat seem to not understand what Rekieta said. Can I mention that? Can I mention what Rekieta said?
You can say, like I said, I won't comment on it just because I'm involved in it. But yeah, you could say whatever it is you want to say.
Okay, so I think that a lot of people are under a serious misunderstanding that back in the day, Montegraph had a couple trolls because he's always been like a weirdo, right? So people fucked with him. He self-published a bunch of homemade videos, and then some trolls on the internet said that these were snuff films, even though they're obviously just like home movies. And I think one of the characters in his films is like a minor that is like a runaway from home. So it was like, oh, this is a snuff film, and this is supposed to be a child, even though it's clearly an adult woman. So this is child pornography, is what they said. So people kind of misunderstand that because Rekieta reiterated that he was, or said that he was a pedophile, that these rumors are the originating claim, and therefore you can't you can say that he's a pedophile all day long. That's not true, because what Rekieta said is actually completely different than the original rumor. Rekieta went out and said that Montegraph always liked sucking little baby penis, which is not related to his movies. It was not an existing claim. It was literally something that he came up with on the top of his head to make fun of Monty on the live cast while Monty was in the chat. And then when asked about this, he
Hey,
lied to
real
my.
quick. Hey,
Yes.
apparently Ralph really is in chat. Do you
I don't think that that's actually Ralph.
somebody? Well, no, one of my people that is telling me it's him.
I don't think it is, because he would tweet about it or something.
I don't know. I thought, well, is he not tweeting? Because here, let me look. I'll let you keep going. I'm gonna look real quick.
To finish my thought, because
Yeah,
he lied to
sorry.
my face about this, and he said it was a statement that could not possibly be defamation, because he said probably, which I guess is like a weasel word. You can say probably is a pedophile, and therefore that's not defamation, but he didn't. He said the exact opposite. He said literally the exact opposite of probably. So he knows that what he said was stupid, and he deliberately lies and misleads people about what he said, because he knows that that's defamation per se. And he knows that he doesn't have. And when he retells the story, because now he says, well, I have to say that he is a pedophile because he sued me. That is the only logical thing for me to do, is to say that he's a pedophile. But he never reiterates his actual original claim, because he knows it's bad, and he knows he can't defend it. I'm not lying. That's literally what happened. Actually, I've never heard him reiterate the original thing that he says. He will say that Montegraph is a pedophile, but he'll never actually word for word repeat his original claim that is actually the question, the legal question. It's probably not defamation.
Yeah.
What could you if saying that someone's like gives oral sex to babies, what could you is not defamation? What could possibly be defamation then? Like, what can you say about somebody that's not defamation if that's not defamation?
I don't know, Nolan. Like I said, I don't want to. I know you're probably asking more hypothetically, but it's like, that's a very good question. Very good
ask
question.
yourself, if that's not defamation, like, what is? And if someone said that about you, how would you feel if someone said that to you? So went online, someone with, at the time, Rekieta was at his height. So this is a person who was speaking to 100,000 people at a time, said that you sucked off babies. How would you feel? Would you feel that your reputation was damaged because of this? Or would you say, well, First Amendment, bro? No, you probably wouldn't. You'd probably be upset.
Yeah. And then also Parallax has a question for you. Sorry to switch gears and all, but he asked this and I don't want to forget it. Are you proud Bossman seems to be thriving a little bit?
Oh, I'm very happy.
He even pays his mods. That's awesome.
He pays his mods. I'm very happy that Bossman's has with all the I told the guy that told me about him, because Bossman had less than 1,000 subscribers when I knew him, and or found out about him, and half of those subscribers were just people fucking with him and making bot accounts, which Stake eventually fixed. But thousands of his followers are fake subs that are controlled by a group of people that I had talked to that but not anymore, because they hired a service. So all of his subscribers now are like real accounts. But back when I first found out about him, the majority of his accounts were bot accounts. But I told him when he told me all this, if I talk about this guy on stream, I can tell you right now he's going to blow up, because it's very, very, very funny. And it's very funny to the point where you can take a random clip of Bossman and show it to anybody in the world, and they will laugh at this guy. Because it's just like, you don't need context, you don't need his background, you don't need any information about him. You see him throw money on a casino game and lose and go, what the fuck, how is that possible? And you just laugh, because like, obviously it's a casino game. That's actually what it's designed to do, is to take your money. But yeah, I'm very, very happy that he has not like changed at all with his publicity. He seems completely like willingly ignorant to the following that's accruing around him. and he just sees the sub count go up, and he thinks, "Thank God, more gambling money." You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And then, wow, you guys are just chugging along out here tonight. What else is there? D-Zone D is saying, but how would Monograph prove damages? If it's per se, damages are presumed. When for example, if you're being accusing somebody of criminal conduct, there's a presumption you've caused damage to them. You caused them harm.
How
Because
do
it's
they
a serious
determine
thing
the
to accuse
amount
people
that
of
you have
crime.
to pay? Because I know that defamation per se is a thing, and people seem
Yeah.
confused that, like, when it's such an egregious claim, like,
Mhm.
I think there's a couple things, like, you committed a crime such as
Yeah.
raping a child, and you have HIV.
Mhm.
Those are like the two things that are defamation per se.
Yeah.
And they just assume damages. I'm not sure how they do that.
You assume damages, but you have to quantify the damages still. So does that make sense? Like you've already met the burden of you caused harm, but
Mhm.
then you have to quantify the harm. So does that make sense with that?
Yeah.
So now you
So
have to prove you have to. So it's not. It's kind of like if you got in a car accident. It's like we presume you got hurt. We presume you have a broken leg, but just now, what's the cost of that broken leg? Pain and suffering,
are
punitive
fees a
damages,
part of
whatever.
that if it's per se?
Uh I think per se, it depends on the state. I mean, fees could be part of it. Attorneys' fees could be part of it under statute
Yeah.
or under case law. It's a typical thing, but I think they'd have to ask for it, and I think they asked for it in their motion or their complaint anyway. So
That's
they
interesting.
covered that base.
But I
So
mean, even if
but
it's
you have
like
to,
$1, it's like
but
it's
that's like,
embarrassing.
what that police officer case that's cited in the stuff. They talk about that. There was defamation per se, but the guy only got like $700
Yeah.
because it's not the $1 nominal damage, but it's also, well, if $700 is all you're getting, the jury didn't think it was that big a deal. So that's where they determine you've suffered harm, so we don't need to find you've suffered harm anymore. But you have to show how much harm you've suffered,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, that
otherwise the
makes.
jury doesn't know what to do if you don't
But
tell them
also,
how much.
I think part of the relief is just having the court say that this is like defamation. You know, just winning is in part of the relief.
Oh yeah, and well, no, that's where the nominal damages come in. They'll say you're right, but this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's the I as my professor once said, that when you get the nominal damages, it's saying like you're right, but why the fuck are you here? Verdict is that's their way of saying it. Yeah, and KRS Monty, for him, winning $1 might be enough. Winning $1 million might be enough. I don't know.
$1
I don't know.
million. Oh no! Don't wish him
Well,
$1 million. You know what that means.
yeah, I forget. My apologies out there. Yes, I don't want to wish ill on anyone.
I wish Monty $999,999. That's what
Well,
I'm wishing him.
I mean, you were wished a million suicides though. So,
Oh no!
we're 238 for $5, saying, how is it that Nick said different from what Nola said about Dick and Vito on live stream?
Okay, so I can back this up. I have said before that you should not call someone a pedophile unless you have evidence for it. You should not call someone a pedophile because pedophiles deserve to be killed. If you call someone a pedophile, you should be so convinced of this that you would be willing to take a gun and shoot them and sleep soundly afterwards. I am completely and totally convinced that Vito Gesualdi is a pedophile, and I believe that if it were up to me, if Joe Biden convicted him of pedophilia and said, "Josh, you're the only guy for the job. We need you to take this Colt 45 and kill him. You're the only person I can think of that can carry out this sentence as found in a court of law." I would say, "Mr. President, it would be my distinct honor and privilege to execute the functions of state and in Vito Gesualdi's life, because I do believe truly that he's a pedophile, and I believe this because he said that he is a pedophile multiple times, repeatedly, in different contexts."
I'm gonna say yes. Vito has a long history of saying, "I'm not joking. I really will do this," and it's
Yeah, as
yeah.
far as Dick, I don't know if I've directly called Dick a pedophile, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
like it's very suspicious, like the shit that he's up to, like his interest, just his visceral, bizarre, repeated interest in like getting involved in pedophile like shit and controversy. It's like why do you do
Mm-hmm.
this? I don't know if I've ever said like, but he skews me out like real bad.
Yeah. And then, this is an old one. Faticati for $5 saying, would you choose Josh or Nick if you had to pick someone to give legal advice but not be a lawyer? I'd probably ask my dad instead. I'll go option 3.
Is your dad a
Let's
lawyer?
No, he's not a lawyer. That's why I said I'd ask him.
Oh, it can't be a lawyer. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's why I would ask my dad. No, I'm like the first lawyer in my family. It's like if I didn't know what this all entails, I'm like, I'm not sure I would have done all this. Being a lawyer, it's a lot different than I expected.
I imagine it's very boring. Like you in your head, you know that movie where Santa Claus gets put on trial in New York City?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like the big, like a third of that movie is just the courtroom scene where it's like silly and they bring in reindeer into the court and stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine that prospecting lawyers, imagine that court's like that, but then it's mostly just like filing bullshit. And then you have like 1 hour to give oral arguments, and then you're back to filing bullshit for another year.
Kind of like that. I mean, you watch shows like Franklin and Bash, and I'm like, if it was 1/1000th as cool as anything they've ever done, or any of those shows, I'm like, this would be like the best job ever. And overall, it's not too bad. But yeah, there's a lot of drudgery, but every once in a while you get to do something cool, and you're like, oh my god, that was neat. Like I had a case where I got to argue it recently. It was this lady got accused of taking a swing at her mother-in-law, and I got to argue First Amendment grounds for it, that it was like fighting words and she was provoked to fight. And it was cool. I got to do, like, I call it doing Clarence Darrow stuff, like really making a real argument for once, not just like, oh, well, maybe she deserved it, but she was protected and she was provoked. And this is not something in society we could tolerate. And the judge was like, yeah, I'm not buying that. Still convinced me. So. But it was fun. I got to do that. I got to write these briefs, and it was, citing the First Amendment it was fun. It was that was the neat part.
I feel like being a lawyer would only be fun if you're already financially independent, so you can take on whatever bullshit you want to. And
oh, well, yeah, that part of it would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
But if you have to like hustle and grind and like put up your billboards, like were you charged with DUI? Call us first.
Yeah.
Like that part of it is probably not very fun, especially when you have like absolute like crackheads like walk into your office and like try to talk to you about how they've been like arrested for possession of child pornography, and you're like, oh fuck.
No, there's
I don't want to deal with you.
Yes, wondering where you're. And I know people are gonna laugh, but wondering where the next meal comes from is always it's like a shark. Okay, you ate, but now you're like, okay, what am I eating next? What am I eating next? Yeah, there's that part's not fun. But I will say I've learned more about running a business doing this lawyer stuff than I have anything else I've done in my life. So, also, Elissa's here. How are you doing, Elissa?
I thought Elissa got banned.
No, she's back. She's back.
Picked her up and threw her in the bin. Bam.
No, she came back pretty quick. I'm not sure what happened there. I think they realized whatever it wasn't harassment.
I always wonder if Rekieta does stuff like that or just like his fans, because he does still have fans, and they let me know in the comments of my archives of all my podcasts that they are still out there. They still got his back.
Okay. Also, guys, I did the tallies over. What you see, Phil?
No, just you just like.
I must have had a lot of cases. Yeah, that's. No, I know. No. That's what I say. That
moved on from what I said really fast. It just made me laugh.
Oh, well, yeah. Somebody saying Sean must be eating a lot. Well, not cases, sadly.
Oh, you got distracted. Okay, I got you. You got distracted by that.
So, when I said, what will the court do as far as the poll options go? 1,600 votes. Thanks, guys, for participating. Death by Melon, 6%. In favor of Monty, 17%. In favor of Nick, 31%. And the court may order death by Baldo, 44%.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the part where Randazza like puts on the Baldo as like a demonstration in the court to explain what it is. You have to pay him a lot for that. That's going to really increase the fees of the court.
That would be great. That would be great. He courtroom demonstrations like, so how does this work?
Oh, sorry, I'm still thinking of Randazza putting on the Baldo in court.
Yes, and the judge will be like, counsel, can you please step in front of the jury so they get a better look of how this works, sir? Now proceed. And like anything you demonstrate in front of a jury or experiments you perform in court, you're supposed to be able to perform them beforehand and make sure it's performed right. So there's going to be a lot of dress rehearsals. So Mark will
Oh
have to
yeah,
use
you
the
said
Baldo
it
a couple
several times, so make sure you can pull it off. Right. You don't, because the last thing you want to do is you want to stand in front of the jury and then put it on the like the rubber band snaps and like crushes your
Yes.
balls, like and then that's your entire
Yes.
case out the window.
Yep. Or the guy you picked up at the truck stop to use like starts vomiting everywhere. It's like no, we get that out of your system.
You got to give them Epicat before you put them on stand.
Yeah. Somebody's asking. Break Contact 2 is saying, for $5, will you be hiring me in the Total Retard War Fund? I don't think you have any problems in Ohio. So
if I have any problems in Ohio, I know who to turn to, because there's a fun thing called even at like a bare minimum. There's a fun thing that apparently wasn't used very often a couple of years ago, but now is everywhere. It's Pro Hoc Vice, I think is how you pronounce it.
yes.
And that's basically like if I have an attorney, because the law is basically the same kind of everywhere, except maybe Texas. Texas is probably very different. But if you need your attorney to represent you in a state that he's not licensed in, you ask another attorney to babysit your filings, and that's called Pro Hoc Vice. So if I need to file something in Ohio, I can ask Sean to babysit my attorney.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Yeah, if like Hardin had to come out here, sure, I'd show him around. He'd be all right.
It's not a new thing. I'm just saying that apparently it wasn't used very often before the internet, and now during the internet era, lawyers go.
Yeah,
go
but that's
everywhere.
because mainly things were limited to where you were. People weren't really. All this would be nonsense. You didn't really go outside your the town or county where you live for the most part. So
yeah, it was like a
before the
novelty
internet
to see it, but apparently not. That's just how it was explained to me, that it was a novelty once upon a time, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's very true. It's very true. That's the case. Yeah, I mean, like, you want to see the corn get harvested? I'll show you some corn getting harvested.
Is there anything in Ohio? I'm trying to think. Is Cincinnati in Ohio?
Yes.
God,
They filmed the first 48 there.
Oh yeah.
And Cleveland.
If you want to go beyond the first 48, you can go to Ohio.
Oh, I remember years ago, I was down in Cincinnati, and as my first wife, her friends, we were down there, and I made a joke. I'm like, this looks like they filmed the first 48 around like in this neighborhood. And she's like, no, they were like 2 blocks down a couple of months ago. And I was like, jeez. I was like, great. But yeah, there's not too much here. There's not too much here. I'll admit that, but that's the great part about it. Nobody ever wants to come here. Like, you see those maps of everybody leaving California. Guess where that line doesn't go? Ohio.
No, it just but it goes to fucking Idaho and Montana and Wyoming and Texas instead. It ruins everything.
Yes, and that's fine. Like, stay away from Ohio.
Fine.
It's full.
It's
Stay away from Ohio. It's full. Nobody likes it here.
We need to call a constitutional convention and repeal whatever the fuck it is in the Constitution that allows interstate travel without like borders. We need to get rid of that. We need to deport all the
full
Californians.
faith and credit clause.
Yeah, we need to get rid of that. We need to deport all the Californians.
Oh no, that would be very good. And I feel bad for people in Texas and Idaho, especially Idaho. It's really bad there. Like, everything is so expensive. Buffalo Dan called. He wants his Baldo back. Mandy, why do you have a Baldo? That's the question.
Okay, I need to go eat. Is there any last questions?
No, I think that's it. Thank you for stopping by.
No problem.
Guys, once again, Null from the farms. See you, Josh.
Oh, just one more thing. I'm filing something in this week. I think is probably going to be public. And it'll be fun because I don't know. It usually doesn't happen, this kind of filing. I don't know if that's a hint or not, but it's very rare and it almost never goes through. But it's fun to do.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You son of a bitch! You did it.
Yeah, I'm even requesting a copy of it sent to me because I want it as like a token.
Put it on your wall, like.
Yeah.
Oh, great! No, then I'm really gonna have some stuff to review coming up. That'll be great.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, see you, Josh.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was fun. Anybody else shows up, we'll have like a star-studded cast today.